Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Spectre here for another edition of Midnight Rider. Good to have you aboard. Tonight on the broadcast, we've got a pretty full show lined up. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about Fauci and the goings on with him, some of the revelations, the COVID vax, some of Biden's cabinet picks and that have taken place. Old McConnell and the filibuster saved with the sharing of power now with the Senate now evenly split. Goings on around the Shampeachment, all that other stuff, and some other miscellaneous tyranny. So that's what we're going to entertain here on the broadcast tonight. So we'll see you back here shortly on the other side. Warning. These social media platforms may be hazardous to your health. Censorship kills. Pain coming. This has been a PSA by Breaking Spectre. Alright, welcome back everybody. Appreciate you joining here. For all those joining on the YouTube side, Twitch, D-Live, we got Tiger Network, all of you guys aboard here tonight. Before I get going here too far along tonight, I want to take a moment to dedicate the broadcast to a friend of mine who went to be with the Lord this morning. A little bit of an inspiration to me and doing what I do behind the scenes here, and had a short bout with cancer and came on pretty suddenly here over the last week. And, as Ecclesiastes 3 says, there's a time for everything. For everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. And a time to mourn and a time to dance. So, that being said, it's tough to see people go in this time and age in which we live, but nonetheless, we're going to celebrate her being here and just know that she's in peace and comfort this evening. So thank you for indulging me on that, and let's get into it here this evening. All right, so first up tonight, we're going to talk about the massive internet outage that hit the coast due to a fiber cut in Brooklyn this morning. Perhaps if you're on the East Coast, you may have noticed that you might have had some issues, and this was why. This was updated about midday today. Reuters reports the massive outage of various web services this morning could be due to a fiber line that was cut in Brooklyn. Verizon support tweeted this out, says there's a fiber cut in Brooklyn. We have no ETR. I'm assuming they meant ETA on that, I'm not sure. As of yet, you can use my Fios app for updates. Users of Zoom, YouTube, Google, Gmail, Google Meet, Robinhood, Slack, Spotify, and Amazon Web Services were all reporting issues or outages on Tuesday morning, according to Down Detector. And there you can see some of the various applications in that Down Detector showed. It says these web services are critical for remote working folks and could cause disruptions. Zoom users are reporting issues or outages across Mid-Atlantic and Northeast states. So there we saw the area in question throughout the morning here. The same goes for users of Google, and saw a very similar map there as well. And we all know who is to blame, right? That's got to be Putin. Hacked the planet, right? After all, it was Mr. Putin and company with the solar wind stuff. And it wasn't Putin after all. There's been a massive surge of Twitter users reporting various web services that are currently down. Bernadette Watkins says at Verizon Fios, I am trying to find out if there's an outage in my area. Cannot log into my account online or on the app. Abs, I cannot get anyone on the line. Help. Capital One also down. And so there you see that. Nonetheless, this is funny. Verizon and Comcast doing self-inflicted outages to stop us common folk from buying up those GME, GameStop, and BB calls. And gotta love a statewide internet outage on the first day of Zoom classes, one Twitter user said. So yes, in case this morning or perhaps into the early afternoon you experienced some issues, perhaps that was indeed the cause. No word yet as to whether or not that has indeed been fixed. All right, switching things up a little bit about the day here, we find out that Dr. Fauci, Steve Hilton, drops the bombshell. Fauci's institute commissioned research that produced this COVID-19 virus after Obama administration banned funding of the controversial research. Right? So this is quite the shocker, right? No, of course not. If you've been paying attention at all for the last year, we've been behind the scenes knowing a lot of this, and of course some of this is just now making its way to the Mockingbird media. So anyway, Natural News says last week President Biden's new chief medical advisor, Dr. Fauci, old boss, same as a new boss, gleefully announced that President Biden has agreed to retract President Trump's decision to withdraw support for the World Health Organization, calling its president, Dr. Tedros, his dear friend. Fox News Revolution host Steve Hilton unloaded on Dr. Anthony Fauci, telling his viewers that after the facts he is sharing with the public that reveal the origins of COVID-19, Dr. Fauci was going to need friends in high places. Hilton explained how the influenza virus was injected from one ferret to another. According to Hilton's study, ferrets have respiratory symptoms that are very similar to humans. About 10 years ago, scientists in Erasmus Medical Center in the Netherlands manipulated the virus in ferrets until the virus was mutated enough to be transmitted through the air. The gain-of-function virus research was born. The idea was to engineer the most contagious, deadly viruses in a lab to help us better prepare to fight them. And here we see the piece out of the Fox piece there from March 6, 2019, the gain-of-function research stuff there. You can read that. According to Hilton, gain-of-function virus research has been funded by none other than the National Institute of Allergies and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Anthony Fauci. The Wuhan Institute of Virology is one of the leading labs studying the COVID virus. Imagine if a deadly virus engineered in a lab to be incredibly contagious somehow escaped from a lab. It could wreak havoc, precisely because it was designed to do this, not by nature, but by us, Hilton said. Wait a minute. Didn't they tell us last year that this was spread by some sort of bat soup at a wet market? Wasn't that the story, Mockingbird Media? Gain-of-functions research has always been highly controversial, Hilton explained. The revolutionary host explained that in 2014, the Obama administration placed a complete moratorium on this kind of research, following recent biosafety incidents at federal research facilities. Despite the controversy studying this type of research, it has always had one steadfast champion, a leading figure in the world of infectious diseases, Anthony Fauci. Hilton explained. His institute funded that first ferret study, he explained, adding, at the time, he co-wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post describing this research as a flu risk worth taking. Important information and insights can come from generating a potentially dangerous virus in a laboratory. And there you see the Washington Post piece of a flu virus worth taking, dating clear back to December 30th, 2011. Despite the Obama administration's ban on gain-of-functions research, Hilton explains that Dr. Anthony Fauci gave over $3 million over the course of 6 years to zoologist Peter Daszak, known as the Batman. Oh, isn't that just dandy? Of Eco Health Alliance. Daszak first discovered the bat origin of the SARS pandemic over a decade ago. According to Hilton, Peter Daszak himself subcontracted the gain-of-function portion of Fauci's project to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Hilton asks, the question is, did they give it to us? And of course, video here, I'm not going to play that through. I'll go ahead and drop the link out here when I'm finished here if you guys want to check that out. Hilton continued with his bombshell report. Let's see what they did with the Fauci money, Hilton says. Inside the project's results page are 13 papers co-authored by the head of the Wuhan's infectious disease unit. One of the papers, published in 2017, and zoologist Peter Daszak is listed as a co-author. Inside the funding section of that paper is the ID of the Fauci Commission project, adding, that's the money trail. Until now, the only reporting on Fauci's role on all this has been on the funding of the Wuhan lab in general, Hilton continued. Tonight, we can go further, thanks to this paper. We can see the specific activity that Fauci funded, and it's terrifying. They collected samples of bat feces in a bat cave in China, Hilton explained, adding that they found novel coronaviruses in the bat feces, and then they infected human cells with them. Here's the most important part, Hilton explained. The genetic changes they made in the lab unlocked a highly specific doorway into the human body. The virus that causes COVID-19 uses that same doorway. And I'm guessing that is just purely coincidence, right? Are we still funding this research? Hilton asked as he explained that they reached out to Dr. Fauci, the NIA, and Peter Daszak and got no replies from any of them. So, complete shocker there, right? And of course, in recent days, what did we find out about Mr. Fauci? Well, he was the highest paid person in the government, pulling in about a $417,000 a year salary. Yeah, that's Dr. Fauci. And oh, by the way, not to mention that he is also funded by the likes of the Gates Foundation and things like that. But, we're not supposed to know that, right? Right. In any case, carrying on that theme, obviously to combat this virus, everybody got amped up through Operation Warp Speed, all the big pharma and that developing all the vaccines as of late. Florida man develops and dies from rare autoimmune disorder days after receiving Pfizer coronavirus vaccine. And it seems like these headlines keep popping up. Everything from Norway, where we saw dozens of folks in long-term care facilities, things of that nature, taking place, to many, many more, especially in the last couple weeks. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Florida Department of Health, and the Miami-Dade County Medical Examiner Department are investigating the sudden passing of a doctor who developed a rare autoimmune disorder several days after receiving Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine. Dr. Gregory Michael, a 56-year-old obstetrician and gynecologist from Miami Beach, received the vaccine at Mount Sinai Medical Center on December 18th. Just 3 days after receiving the vaccine, he developed a rare autoimmune disorder known as acute immune thrombocytopenia. Hopefully I said that right, which prevented his blood from clotting. On January 3rd, his wife, Heidi Neckelman, wrote in a Facebook post that he had died from a brain hemorrhage. Pfizer immediately went on the defensive, releasing a statement saying that they do not believe the death was in any way connected to the vaccine. Nevertheless, the company said they had opened an investigation into the case. And I guess I'll pause it right there and remind folks that, hey, guess what, folks? As all of this took place, who do you think has immunity behind the scenes, gifted by Congress, just like every other vaccine? Yeah, Pfizer, Moderna, GlaxoSmithKline, AstraZeneca, all of them. They still have the secret courts that you have to go to in case there's major adverse effects. Yeah, you can't sue them outright. Pfizer, like I said, went on the defensive. It says there's no indication either from large clinical trials or among people who have received the vaccine since the government authorized its use last month that it could be connected to thrombocytopenia. There have been no related safety signals identified in our clinical trials. The post-marketing experience thus far, our immediate thoughts are with the bereaved family. Please, Pfizer, remind us how long those clinical trials took again. How long did it take for you guys to get to 95% efficacy, or so you claim? Oh, that's right, just mere months, when typically this takes how long to develop and how many independent studies? Oh. The company also said that nothing in the technology they used gave any indications that it could cause the rare autoimmune disorder. Since the coronavirus vaccine began to be distributed in the United States, reports have come out of people experiencing side effects such as sore arms, fatigue, headaches, fevers, and dozens of cases of anaphylaxis. According to Neckelman, her husband had absolutely no medical issues or any underlying conditions before he received the Pfizer vaccine. She also said that he had never had any kind of an adverse reaction to any medication or vaccines. He was an avid deep-sea fisherman and mostly a family man, she added. He never got COVID because he used an N95 mask from the beginning of the pandemic. He was adamant in protecting his family and patients. Uh-oh. Well, unfortunately, if you read the side of an N95 box, it does clearly state that it does not protect against these things, but I digress. Shortly after receiving the vaccine, Michael developed tiny spots called petechiae, which are formed when tiny blood vessels break open. Recognizing that something was wrong, Michael immediately went to the ER, where doctors discovered that his platelet count had gone down to 0. For 2 weeks, doctors tried to raise his platelet count, and medical experts from all over the world were involved in trying to save him. He was conscious and energetic throughout the whole process, but 2 days before a last resort surgery, he got a hemorrhage stroke caused by the lack of platelets that took his life in a matter of minutes, Neckelman wrote in her post. Neckelman shared the story of her husband's passing on Facebook, where she hopes it can help make people more aware of the vaccine's side effects and that it is not good for anyone, and in this case destroyed a beautiful life, a perfect family, and has affected so many people in the community. You can watch a special episode of Brighton Conversations as Mike Adams, a health ranger, has an illuminating conversation with researcher and analyst Dr. Paula Cottrell, who sends a dire message to America, warning it about the lies being propagated regarding the coronavirus vaccines, coronavirus RT-PCR tests, and more. Continuing, says expert, claims coronavirus vaccine caused the rare autoimmune disorder. Local and federal officials have also begun investigating the death of Michael. While several experts on the matter have agreed that the case was very unusual, they refuse to rule out the possibility that the Pfizer vaccine could be the cause. The Florida Health Department immediately referred the case to the CDC, who said in a statement that the agency will be evaluating the situation and will provide updates once new information is available. Darren J. Caprera, a spokesman for the Medical Examiner's Office of Miami-Dade County, said that the county is still investigating Michael's death and will soon be conducting an autopsy to identify the cause. And so I'll just break from that there. That goes on for a little bit more. I think we get the idea. The bottom line, don't take these unless you absolutely have to, and even then, question it. I would venture to say, and don't take my word for it, folks. This is not medical advice. I'll preclude this statement. But do your own research at the end of the day. That's all I'll say to that. All right, so switching things off of that, today we find out that Tulsi Gabbard labels Adam Schiff, John Brennan as domestic enemies of the U.S. Oh, this is getting good. So if you remember right, Tulsi Gabbard was the former candidate for the presidency on the Dem side, and of course, the media paid no mind to her, and she just got kind of swept off the stage, kind of in Ron Paul fashion. So Tulsi Gabbard called on President Biden to reject efforts to expand the government's national security powers. This is deliciously interesting. Former Rep. Tulsi Gabbard issued a dire warning to the American people on Tuesday, expressing concern that domestic enemies of the United States in the national security community and big tech industry are plotting to create a police state in America. Wait a minute, plotting? Isn't it already here? You might not see it, or perhaps you've got a blind eye to it, Tulsi, but I think that it's already here. Gabbard, who served as the U.S. Representative for Hawaii's 2nd Congressional District from 2013 to 2021, posted a video to social media in which she spoke out against efforts to expand the federal government's national security powers after the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. In the video, she called out former CIA Director John Brennan and Rep. Adam Schiff, two leading proponents of expanding national security powers, labeling them domestic enemies of the country. And it appears, there it is. I was going to say, I thought there was a tweet in there. The mob who stormed the Capitol on January 6th to try to stop Congress from carrying out its constitutional responsibilities were behaving like domestic enemies of our country, Gabbard said. But let's be clear. The John Brennans, Adam Schiffs, and the other oligarchs in big tech who are trying to undermine our constitutionally protected rights and turn our country into a police state with KGB-style surveillance are also domestic enemies and much more powerful and therefore dangerous than the mob that stormed the Capitol. And here via tweet says the mob who stormed the Capitol to try to stop Congress from carrying out its unconstitutional responsibilities were, and there we see that, President Biden, I call upon you and all of Congress from both parties to denounce efforts by Brennan and others to take away our civil liberties endowed to us by our Creator and guaranteed in our Constitution. If you don't stand up to them now, then our country will be in great peril. The video cuts to a clip from MSNBC of Brennan saying that members of the Biden administration are now moving in laser-like fashion to try to uncover as much as they can about what looks very similar to insurgency movements that we see overseas. Brennan was speaking of individuals and groups like those that formed the mob that laid siege to the Capitol. If that is to be believed, we call that a siege now. Notice the words that the media try to use here to amp this up. The events of January 6th have been compared in the media to the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks, a comparison some have used to call for a domestic war on terror, demanding that the U.S. employ strategies here at home akin to those used against ISIS and Al-Qaeda abroad. Oh yeah, this is where they want to go. Full lockdown, totalitarian state. Think of the NDAA on drugs and the Patriot Act 2.0, folks. Rep. Schiff in 2019 introduced legislation that would create a federal domestic terrorism criminal statute. A similar bill, sponsored by Dick Durbin, would establish new offices in the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the FBI to investigate domestic terrorism in the U.S. But hey, don't forget to turn a blind eye to those, Black Lives Matter folks and Antifa types. No. Those guys must just be freedom warriors, right? Peaceful assemblies. Gabbard is calling on President Joe Biden and the Congress to defend American civil liberties. President Biden, I call upon you and all of Congress from both parties to denounce efforts by Brennan and others to take away our civil liberties endowed to us by our Creator and guaranteed in our Constitution. If you don't stand up to them now, then our country will be in great peril, she said. And I'm not sure, but I could have swore this thing had a video. I'm not sure. Twitter must have already scrubbed it. I'm not sure, because I could have swore it was there earlier. But nonetheless, I think we get the idea. An interesting take coming out of Tulsi Gabbard. Continuing on the day today in the Hill, the goings-on there, McConnell says eliminating 60-vote filibuster is dead. Not enough votes. This comes by way of Gateway Pundit on today. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell declared victory Tuesday and said efforts to abolish the 60-vote filibuster are dead. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was pushing to end the filibuster so the Dems can pass all the pork-filled Marxist legislation they want without any consent from the minority. How is that exactly a minority when it's 50-50? I guess if you consider the part-time VP sitting in Kamala, I guess that gives them the one-vote majority. In any case, McConnell mentioned that 2 Dem senators confirmed they would not vote to change the rules to allow legislation to pass with a simple majority. Kirsten Sinema out of Arizona and Joe Manchin out of West Virginia publicly stated they would not support ending the legislative filibuster. And there we see the tweet out of McConnell. It says, I'm glad that 2 Senate Dems confirmed today they will not vote to end the legislative filibuster. They agree with President Biden and me on protecting the Senate. With this win, we can move forward with a 50-50 power-sharing agreement built on the 2001 precedent. And I'm not sure if it's in this particular article. yeah, maybe it is. I can't remember. But I think this is only about the third or fourth time where the Senate has been split pretty evenly down the middle. Last of which, as McConnell referenced, was 2001. It should not be news that a few members of the majority pledge they won't tear up a central rule, but the Dem leader was reluctant to repeat the step I took as majority leader in unified government when I ruled out that step on principle. Rather than relying on the Democratic leader, I took the discussion directly to his members, McConnell said. Basic arithmetic now ensures that there are not enough votes to break the rule. This victory will let us move forward with a 50-50 power sharing agreement containing all the elements of the 2001 model because it will sit on the same foundation, McConnell added. And here we get the piece out of the recount.
We placed our trust in the institution itself in a common desire to do the right thing. I'm grateful that's been reciprocated by at least a pair of our colleagues across the aisle. I'm glad we've stepped back from this cliff. Taking that plunge would not be some progressive dream. It would be a nightmare. We placed our trust in the institution itself in a common desire to do the right thing. I'm grateful that's been reciprocated by at least a pair of our colleagues across.
And I think you get the idea there. So, nonetheless, that's in the words of McConnell. And carrying on the Hill today, we also find out that the picks for the cabinet continue to move forward with Biden and company. Gateway Pundit had this to say: Biden's pick for Secretary of State Tony Blinken is connected to Biden family in their shady deals with China and Ukraine. So, as if to throw a little bit more corrupt folks in our face, this is what we get. Biden's pick for Secretary of State is connected with the Bidens in both China and the Ukraine. He's the best man for the job. The pick for the Biden administration Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, was involved in shady Biden deals in China. And I think there's another article, maybe Holly's going to highlight this, that he was also found in Hunter Biden's laptop as well. Holly says, busted. Biden Secretary of State picked Tony Blinken caught in emails on Hunter's laptop, managed Biden project that received massive anonymous Chinese funding. Blinken nod goes to Senate Foreign Relations Committee Monday, but big issues must be addressed. So, continuing that thought, the National Fauxci reported on Blinken's relationship with the Bidens and China. Tony Blinken, the Biden administration's nominee for Secretary of State, managed a Joe Biden project that received millions of anonymous Chinese donor dollars. Blinken appeared a handful of times in emails found on Hunter Biden's laptop, agreeing to advise Hunter Biden when Hunter worked at the scandal-plagued firm Rosemont Seneca Partners. The Obama State Department set up a meeting between Hunter and Blinken, which was postponed, and the two met 2 months later in 2015. Hunter Biden coordinated introductions between Blinken and his associates, and Blinken was named in an email in connection to a shady prospective deal involving the federal government and Amtrak, a company that previously had Hunter Biden on its board. In addition, Blinken is connected to the Bidens in Ukraine. Yakov Applebaum shared an email from the Hunter laptop that confirms this. And here we see the XR Vision memo here, highlighting that thanks sent from my iPhone dating back to March 26, 2012, it appears. Deputy Assistant to the President, National Security Advisor to the Vice President, etc. Nonetheless, even crazy Senator John McCain had problems with Blinken. In 2014, McCain blocked Blinken's appointment by Obama over Obama's Iraq policy. U.S. Senator John McCain said on Thursday he is blocking President Barack Obama's nomination of Anthony Blinken as the country's number 2 diplomat, citing sharp disagreements with the nominee's past statements on Iraq. He's totally unqualified, the Republican senator told Reuters, when asked why he was holding up Blinken's nomination to be Deputy Secretary of State. He's the guy who said we're leaving behind the richest, safest Iraq in history. Look it up, McCain said, referring to Blinken's reassuring comments 2 years ago. about the decision to withdraw all U.S. troops from Iraq. Blinken's friends, including Hunter, were appalled that McCain would call Blinken unqualified per another email found on Hunter's laptop. You ever get the sense that Hunter's laptop could be the gift that keeps on giving? Nonetheless, the U.S. is going in the absolute wrong direction when a cohort of the Bidens, who is even criticized by John McCain, is a pick for Biden's Secretary of State. So, logic and reason here, folks. If he was unqualified then, what would make him qualified now? Anything? Anyone? In any case, one of Biden's other picks, we get this today out of National File. Biden's Energy Secretary nominee will make over $5 million when she leaves private sector and joins the government. So it seems like it just it gets better and better here. The former Dem Michigan governor stands to make millions off the sale on investments related to the private energy sector. And I guess that's just par for the course, right? As a windfall to her nomination as Energy Secretary by President Joe Biden, former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm stands to pocket over $5 million when she steps down from a prominent corporate board position with a Silicon Valley energy company. In accepting the nomination from Biden, Granholm will necessarily have to step down from her position on the board of directors of Proterra, Incorporated, an electric vehicles manufacturer. She will also have to divest in her stock holdings in the company. Granholm's stock in Proterra, reported on disclosure statements, is valued between $1 and $5 million. Granholm will also be liquidating her stock and cutting ties with other energy companies, including First Solar, a solar panel company, and Duke Energy, an electric company. The former Michigan governor's intimate ties to the energy industry will, no doubt, raise conflict of interest concerns on Capitol Hill. That shouldn't be a major issue, right? Because that just seems to be the way to pay to play, right? Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and of course, I'm sure Duke Energy and these guys will probably just have their lobbyists at the ready and buy some influence. In any case, continuing on, we see the tweet out of Citizen for Ethics here. Biden's nominee for Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm has conflicts of interest in her energy investments. She must keep her promise to recuse herself and divest quickly. So I guess we'll see if she does. In addition to her board position with Proterra, Granholm engages in consulting work for startup companies and smaller corporations in the clean energy and transportation sectors. Her potential conflict of interest comes in that, as Energy Secretary, Granholm would be advocating for climate policies that would serve to benefit the companies for whom she has consulted. A little pay to play. Isn't that what we had prior to Donald Trump coming in? A whole lot of that. Forbes had this to say. Jennifer Granholm, Joe Biden's nominee for Secretary of Energy, holds more than $1 million worth of stock options in an electric bus and battery maker set to go public later this year. Granholm also co-owns a firm with her husband, Daniel Mulhern, that does consulting for clean energy companies. Granholm Mulhern Associates will dissolve after she is confirmed as Energy Secretary, but her husband has stated he will launch a new firm solely in his name, which will service current clients. Andrew Bates, a Biden transition spokesman, said Mulhern will divest from his stocks in First Solar and Duke Energy and will not consult with energy companies during his wife's tenure with the Biden administration. Yeah, right. Wink, wink. In any case, more of the same. So now let's switch it up to the shenanigans going on around the Shampeachment. So today out of Zero Hedge we get this. Going to be a few pieces here. We'll listen to Rand Paul give his dissertation. It says, "Are wasting our time. Rand Paul shreds unconstitutional Trump impeachment, lists examples of Democrat incitement." And Kentucky GOP Senator Rand Paul shredded congressional Democrats over the second impeachment of former President Trump, arguing in a floor speech in a procedural motion to table or kill the proceedings that Dems are about to drag our great country down into the gutter of rancor and vitriol, the likes of which has never been seen in our nation. Adding, "It's almost as if they have no ability to exist except in opposition to Donald Trump." Apparently, Trump has rented a lot of space between the Dems' heads. The Daily Caller had this. Says, Democrats are about to drag our great country down into the gutter of rancor, and that looks to be exactly what I had just said, so we'll let this play through.
In our country. No, unity is the opposite of this travesty we are about to witness. If we are about to try to impeach a president, where is the Chief Justice? If the accused is no longer president, where is the constitutional power to impeach him? Private citizens don't get impeached. Impeachment is for removal from office, and the accused here has already left office. Hyper-partisan Democrats are about to drag our great country down into the gutter of rancor and vitriol, the likes of which has never been seen in our nation's history. Instead of doing the nation's work with their new majorities in the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, Democrats are wasting the nation's time on a partisan vendetta against a man no longer in office. It's almost as if they have no ability to exist except in opposition to Donald Trump. Without him as their boogeyman, they might have to legislate and to actually convince Americans that their policy prescriptions are the right ones.
Yeah, we'll pause it there. I think we get the idea. And did you hear him say they'll have to actually legislate? Are you sure about that, Rand? Because it seems like Biden's doing a pretty good job on his own with just a pen and a phone, just like his former boss, 44, did, right? You know, issuing about 19 or so EOs on the first day, and I think now another 19 have surfaced as well. Covered that last night. Paul then argued that Dems are guilty of the exact incitement they've accused Trump of. Oh, you mean projection? Suggesting that no Democrat will honestly ask whether Bernie Sanders incited the shooter that nearly killed Steve Scalise, and no Democrat will ask whether Maxine Waters incited violence when she literally told her supporters to confront Trump officials in public. Seems like this may have frozen up. I'm not sure. Alright, well, let's see here. See if I can refresh that and it'll come back to. Of course. Gotta love it when that happens. Alright, get back to where we were. Let's see here. I disagreed. I don't think Congress should overturn the Electoral College. Talking about that as well. Let's let this part play through.
Who seek blame and revenge, and who choose to pervert a constitutional process while doing so. I want this body on record. Every last person here. Is this how you think politics should be? Look, we've now got crazy partisans on the other side of the aisle trying to censor and remove two of the Republican senators for their political position. Now, look, I disagreed. I don't think Congress should overturn the Electoral College. But impeaching or censoring or expelling a member of Congress you disagree with? Is the truth so narrow that only you know the truth? We now have the media on your side saying there is only one set of facts, one set of truth, and you can only interpret it this way. Now we have 7 senators on the other side trying to expel, censor, or impugn 2 senators on this side. And I defend them, not because I defend their position. I disagreed with their position. But you can't impeach, censor, expel people you disagree with. What's this coming to? In a few minutes, I will insist on a vote to affirm that this proceeding we are about to enter is unconstitutional, that impeachment of a private citizen is illegal and essentially a bill of attainder, and that no sense of fairness or due process would allow the judge in the proceeding to be a partisan Democrat already on favor of the impeachment. A sham, this is.
That it is. It is indeed a sham. Continuing on. Ultimately, 45 GOP senators voted to kill the impeachment, meaning they agree that it's unconstitutional, while 5 GOP senators voted to table it and proceed with the impeachment. Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, Mitt Romney, Ben Sass, and Pat Toomey. It would require another 12 GOP senators to convict and impeach Trump, now a private citizen. Earlier in the week, Paul wrote that the impeachment trial was a farce and should be dismissed before it is even allowed to begin, adding that the Senate doesn't have the authority to hold an impeachment trial for a former president. It shows they don't have the votes, and we're basically wasting our time, said Paul, who believes the Senate roll call would show that over a third of the chamber thinks the proceeding is unconstitutional. And in any case, it continues. Republican senators have criticized the president for his actions on January 6th, but many have signaled opposition to voting to convict the president. At least 30 Senate Republicans have said they are opposed to or leaning against convicting Mr. Trump, according to a Wall Street Journal survey of senators and their public comments, leaving few open to potentially casting a guilty vote. I doubt there are even 7. Quite honestly, I'm certain there aren't 17, at least not today, said Kevin Kramer. He cited concerns over the legality of trying a former president as well as whether Mr. Trump's actions, while wrong, constituted incitement. And I guess I'll just break from that there and insert my thoughts in that regard. Number 1, let's go back to Federalist number 10, right? About midway through, where they talk about the inflamed passions. I've brought this up in the past. This is exactly that. Do you honestly believe for 1 second that these Dems give a damn about the Constitution and following any processes, protocols, or anything of that nature? No, of course not. It's about a lynching. It's about preventing a guy from being able to run again. And if that is indeed the case, do you think that they're going to bend and break the rules? Just like they did 1 year ago when Nancy walked things over after hurrying up and getting things done in December 2019, and then slow walking things over to the Senate? It's going to be the same sort of deal. It's a sham, and nobody should accept it. It's fraudulent from the start, period. All right. Nonetheless, continuing on that thread, Epoch Times had this: a trial opposition grows. Growing number of Republican senators oppose holding the Trump impeachment trial. An increasing number of Republican senators are voicing opposition to holding an impeachment trial against former President Donald Trump, leaving Dems' ability to swing enough votes for a conviction in doubt. 28 GOP senators have now spoken out against holding a trial, according to an Epoch Times tally, arguing it's unconstitutional to try to convict a former office holder, or a waste of time, just as Rand Paul alluded to. I think right now Donald Trump is no longer the president. He is a former president, said Mike Rounds. I said on NBC's Meet the Press on Sunday, arguing parts of the Constitution say lawmakers can impeach a president, but they do not indicate that you can impeach someone who is not in office. And I thought that was pretty clearly stated in the Constitution. But hey, who needs that rickety old piece of paper? The first chance I get to vote to end this trial, I'll do it, Senator Marco Rubio added on Fox News Sunday. The pair and 26 other Republicans have said they don't agree with holding a trial. The others include Senators Ted Cruz, Tim Scott, and Ron Johnson. I believe an impeachment trial of a former president is unconstitutional and would set a very dangerous precedent. There is no provision in the Constitution for holding such a trial over a former president who is now a private citizen. Where would we get the authority to do so? Johnson wrote in a statement last week. Virtually all Dems have said they'll vote to convict Trump on the charge of incitement of insurrection. The House of Reps impeached Trump because they said his words led to the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol, including a speech he gave that day at the Ellipse. A timeline showed that Trump had not finished speaking when the violence at the Capitol started. Trump has defended his speech, calling it totally appropriate. Dems must convince at least 17 Republican senators to vote with them to convict the former president. A conviction requires a supermajority. No president in U.S. history has been convicted. 3 have been acquitted, including Trump. 16 Republicans have expressed openness to voting to convict or haven't ruled it out. Chief among them is Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell. Others include Senators Mike Crapo, Rob Portman, and Susan Collins. The stances of the 6 others aren't clear. 5 of their offices didn't respond to requests for comment, and a spokesman for Senator John Kennedy out of Louisiana declined to comment. Republican senators opposing impeachment trial are the following. You get Cruz, Daines, Paul, Rubio, Kramer, Scott, Blunt, Graham, Hyde-Smith, Wicker, Tuberville, Cotton, Rounds, Barrasso, Johnson, Boozman, Braun, Cornyn, Hawley, Marshall, Thune, Blackburn, Ernst, Grassley, Haggerty, Hoeven, Loomis, and Scott. And Republican senators who are open to voting to convict or haven't ruled it out. You get Senators Shelby, McConnell, Toomey, Collins, Murkowski, Romney, Sass, Portman, Sullivan, Inhofe, Lankford, Crapo, Tillis, Moore, Capito, Burr, and Cassidy. Republican senator whose stances are unclear. Well, then you get Kennedy, Risch, Lee, Moran, Fisher, and Young. So there you have it. The names to keep track of as per the Epoch Times. All right, so we'll interject a little bit of humor on today. Perhaps yesterday you might have seen Jen Psaki, the cut-up Annette put together that was absolutely hilarious, where apparently and about that for about 5 minutes of that going on took place. I'm not sure if this is actually legit or not, but at least somebody must have put this underneath a Breitbart article highlighting the live presser Annette from Jen Psaki. Says the woman doing the sign language just said, "This administration is full of shit. They are all insane communists and will destroy this country. Run." So there you have it. Maybe the sign language person is somebody we need to start paying a little bit more of attention to. Any of you guys out there in chat know how to read sign language? Hey, just a thought. And in any case, let's move along. So last night on the broadcast, if you remember right, I brought up a piece about Leon, what's his name, and that was just stepping down from his firm, Annette, that had ties to Jeffrey Epstein, shelling out about $150 million in that after he was released from prison. And so we get a little bit more news around the Epstein/Maxwell stuff goings on. Today out of The Guardian, Ghislaine Maxwell lawyers say jurors who indicted her not diverse enough. How very, very interesting. The legal team makes series of arguments to dismiss the case, including that 2008 Epstein plea deal should shield the client from prosecution. And we'll see how this plays out, especially with the change of hands in the administration. Lawyers for Ghislaine Maxwell complained on Monday that the pool of grand jurors who indicted her was not diverse enough, according to new court documents. The fact that Ms. Maxwell herself is neither black nor Hispanic does not deprive her of her standing to raise this challenge, the attorneys wrote in court papers, arguing that the U.S. Constitution entitles every defendant to object to a pool that is not designed to represent a fair cross-section of the community, whether or not the systematically excluded groups are groups to which he himself belongs. Maxwell's purported concerns about diversity stem from the geographical circumstances surrounding her indictment. Maxwell is facing charges in the Southern District of New York's Manhattan Division relating to her alleged involvement in her late friend Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking of minor girls. However, she was indicted by a grand jury in the SDNY's White Plains Division before her 2nd of July arrest, as COVID-19 had limited grand jury proceedings in Manhattan. Oh, please. White Plains grand jurors hail from countless counties outside of New York City. Maxwell's attorneys said they were therefore drawn from a community in which black and Hispanic residents are significantly underrepresented by comparison. The Sixth Amendment guarantees a criminal defendant a grand jury selected from a fair cross-section of the community. Ms. Maxwell's right under the Sixth Amendment to a grand jury drawn from a fair cross-section of the community applies to the grand jury that indicted her. Here, the use of a White Plains jury resulted in the systematic underrepresentation of black and Hispanic persons from the jury selection process in violation of Ms. Maxwell's Sixth Amendment right. Oh, did you get this? So apparently, folks, I'll pause here for a second. You must have a lot more rights when you're going to trial, and your friends in high places, lawyers and attorneys, tend to try and find any sort of weasel words and things to use to prevent them from going to trial than you and I do as everyday citizens. Troubling. Maxwell's lawyers also argued that prosecutors could have waited to convene a grand jury in Manhattan, claiming that one such panel met as early as the 25th of June. There appears to have been no reason other than a publicity-driven desire to arrest Ms. Maxwell on the anniversary of the Epstein indictment, why the government could not have waited until that time, they said. Maxwell's attorneys made the claims as part of their push to dismiss her case. Among 12 arguments attacking the indictment, they said a non-prosecution deal Epstein reached with the federal government in 2008 should shield Maxwell too. The agreement sought to protect Epstein and those around him, but Maxwell was not identified by name in a document signed when Epstein agreed to plead guilty to state charges in Florida that forced him to register as a sex offender. Lawyers for Epstein plan to argue that the deal protected him against sex trafficking charges in New York City. Manhattan prosecutors maintain they could proceed against Epstein or those who worked for him, regardless. And of course, Epstein killed himself at a Manhattan federal prison a month after his arrest, and we know the rest of that story. In the event Maxwell's lawyers cannot force the dismissal of charges, they also made requests that would reduce the number of charges she faces. So there you have it. Some of the developments still ongoing with Maxwell. And again, with the changing of the guard, it's going to be very, very interesting to see if and or how this plays out. Obviously, if this thing gets dismissed, it would be a severe travesty of justice. All right, moving along. So the censorship continues to ramp up. YouTube strips rising media company Epoch Times of ability to monetize video content. This out of Solomon's Just the News. And of course, if you've paid any attention to the pieces in that I've done, I like to use the Epoch Times as well. This is the latest example of big tech suppression of free speech, a step on the road to communist-style censorship, publisher Stephen Gregory. And of course, even just last night, I believe, for those of you who may still be out on the Twitter sphere, I believe there was a purge that took place again last night. And of course, I believe that also ensnared My Pillow guy as well. YouTube, the video platform service that is a Google subsidiary, has banned the Epoch Times, a rising conservative-leaning media outlet, from earning money off its videos. Well, I guess if there's any saving grace, they should at least be thankful they still have a platform. But if I'm in Epoch Times' hands, they better quickly find alternate platforms, as many of us have already done. YouTube demonetized the Epoch Times and related accounts last week. Stephen Gregory, publisher of the Epoch Times, confirmed to Just the News on Tuesday in an email. This is the latest example of big tech suppression of free speech, a step on the road to communist-style censorship. A YouTube spokesperson acknowledged Tuesday in an email to Just the News that the company had demonetized the publication's channel and affiliated channels and had suspended them from the YouTube Partnership Program over issues related to harmful or sensitive content. All channels on YouTube need to comply with our community guidelines, and in order to monetize, channels must comply with YouTube Partner Program policies, which include our advertiser-friendly guidelines, the spokesperson also said. Channels that repeatedly violate these policies are suspended from our partner program. The spokesperson noted that the channels removed from its partner program are able to appeal the decision or reapply to YPP in 30 days, providing the underlying issues that led to suspension have been addressed to YouTube's liking. Meet your overlords, folks, right? The move by YouTube follows Twitter earlier this month deplatforming former President Trump and some conservative users, and the app Parler being denied web hosting services by Amazon. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton on January 13th issued civil investigative demands to Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon Web Services, and Apple, asking the companies for their policies and practices regarding content moderation and, more specifically, for information related to Parler, a social media application popular among conservatives that was recently terminated or blocked by Google, Amazon, and Apple. On Thursday, a federal judge denied Parler's request to have Amazon immediately restore its web service, saying she rejects any suggestion that the public interest favors requiring AWS to host the incendiary speech. So I guess we just turn a blind eye to contract law and everything that stands for. But hey, Larry Elder, a prominent African-American conservative filmmaker who hosts a video series for the Epoch Times, confirmed during an interview with Just the News AM television program that the demonetization hit him personally, reducing his income. And to that I say, welcome to the club. We have to build our own infrastructure, our own social media platforms, Elder said. Ditto, pointing to alternative social platforms like Gab.com and video service Rumble.com. The only answer is not to bitch, moan, and whine about how unfairly we're being treated, not to run to the government to pass more regulations. The answer is to build our own platforms, and we have been asleep at the switch. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that sentiment. You've heard me talk about that pretty much ad nauseum for months. That is exactly what needs to happen. We need to build around and through these pricks because at the end of the day, we are not going to be given quarter. Not on their platforms. So we need to build through them. And in conjunction with that, along those lines, the Blaze had this to say. House Republicans demand that any FBI investigation into Parler's role in the Capitol riot must probe, get this, Facebook and Twitter too. Uh-oh. So GOP members allege social media giants profited off of the January 6th chaos. Oh, won't that be a dandy one to try and prove? House Oversight Committee Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney announced last week that she had asked the FBI to investigate social media company Parler for any role it might have played in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. However, Republican members of the committee have no intention of letting the Dem chairwoman ignore any potential role Facebook or Twitter may have played in the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol if she's going to go after Parler. In a letter to Maloney on Monday, first reported by Fox News Oversight Ranking Member James Comer and Rep. Greg Steube, demanded that the chairwoman amend her FBI request to include Facebook and Twitter and pointed out her overly partisan request that did not even bother to mention the potential role the social media giants may have played in the riot. Shocker. I wonder why that would be. Anybody want to go to like Open Secrets or anything along those lines and see whether or not this particular senator, I suppose, may have some campaign contribution dollars from either one of them? Just a thought. Yeah, let's see. Says the letter said everyone responsible for the insurrection should be held to account, but, they added, the focus should not be on just one social media company that has a known right-of-center base. And her move, they said, simply exposed the increasing coordinated efforts of big tech and the Dem Party to chill speech. So as like you, we were disturbed and angered by the riot, and we believe those responsible should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But casting blame on a single social media company known for its conservative user base, while simply ignoring other social media companies known for sympathizing with liberal causes, is blatantly and overtly partisan. Moreover, your letter is additional evidence of the growing alliance between big tech and Dems to muzzle certain viewpoints, opinions, and perspectives. The congressman noted that Maloney's FBI investigation request omitted the fact that other social media platforms were also facilitators of the January 6th riot. A cursory search of other social media platforms yields identical, disturbing posts from across the political spectrum, advocating for a wide swath of positions, demonizing an equally diverse group of people. They wrote, the lawmakers noted that multiple reports showed riot plotters used Facebook and Twitter to plan and promote the insurrection. Though your letter highlights several examples of disturbing, malignant posts made by extremists on Parler, it conveniently ignores messages sent on Facebook instructing people to seal in members of Congress in the tunnels below the Capitol and to turn the gas on. Horrendous tactics reminiscent of humanity's darkest time. And one of the only conspiracy cases charged thus far stemming from the January 6th riot, the underlying fact shows weeks of using Facebook to plan for the January 6th event. For example, Facebook posts, comments, and messages from between December 24th, 2020 and January 5th, 2021 indicate detailed planning about where to lodge and how to mobilize for January 6th, including multiple references to night hunting. One of the individuals involved in these Facebook activities was likely wearing paramilitary equipment during the attack on the Capitol. A search of Twitter immediately after the riot found that accounts related to the QAnon conspiracy theory had referred to the January 6th date roughly 20,800 times prior to the attacks. After the riot, renewed calls to action from extremists online occurred on Twitter, encouraging events such as an armed march on all state capitals across the country. They also stated that Facebook and Twitter appear to have profited off of the January 6th riot. According to Comer and Stubbs' letter, the platforms generate more revenue during political turmoil because of increased engagement. But, they noted, it seemed unlikely that Dems still want to appear to be going after big tech. After all, it could negatively impact Democratic coffers. The letter pointed out that during the 2020 election cycle, nearly 93% of Facebook employees' federal election contributions, ding ding ding, went to who? The Democrats. Twitter employees were even more likely to give to the Democratic Party, with 98.41% of their federal election donations to the party. Well, color me shocked. Maloney's move is clearly a political ploy, the Republicans wrote, that is taking advantage of the tragedy in order to shut down speech Democrats dislike. We request you amend your request for an FBI investigation to include Facebook and Twitter and the roles those companies played to contribute to the January 6th riot, they concluded. So there you have it, a little fighting back in that regard. And we know damn well that there was little to no planning and whatnot going on Parler. Yes, indeed, I can pretty much guarantee you that Facebook and Twitter are equally complicit. Are they going to turn a blind eye? We'll have to see how this plays out. And, oh, by the way, this is going on in India right now. It's Dinu tweets out, says, "Are you compare these two picks from west to east, from oldest democracy to biggest democracy? Hashtag farmers protest, hashtag farmers protest. If leader of first pick is being impeached, why not others won?" So, very, very interesting. This came out of a piece out of Zero Hedge, and I just happened to catch a tweet to throw it up here for tonight's broadcast to compare and contrast the two. Modi is under fire based on some policy changes, and the farmers are having none of it in India. And it's shockingly somewhat reminiscent of what did take place on January 6th, albeit in India. So very, very interesting. And last but not least on the broadcast tonight. So again, still on the theme of what has transpired from January 6th, we get this out of Epoch Times. U.S. prosecutors preparing to bring sedition charges in Capitol breach. And to that I would say, oh hell no. It better not come down to that, because I think at the end of the day, most of us, can probably clearly see that these people were led in, if not even shepherded throughout the halls. So please, explain to me where you would find sedition, and at the same time, turn a freaking blind eye to what has happened in most of the blue cities throughout 2020. Please. Prosecutors are preparing to bring sedition charges against some people involved in the January 6th breach of the U.S. Capitol, a U.S. attorney said Tuesday. We are closely looking at evidence related to these sedition charges, acting U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Michael Sherwin, told reporters in a call. Gee, I wonder who Michael Sherwin has donated to in the past. We are working on those cases, and I think the results will bear fruit very soon, he added. Sherwin said the cases would involve 18 U.S. Code 2384, or seditious conspiracy. That charge can be brought for a conspiracy that involves 2 or more people conspiring to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government. Really? That has got to be the most calm overthrowing of a government I think we have ever witnessed. Have you ever seen a government overthrown where the people actually pick up the garbage after themselves afterwards? Anyone? I'll wait for it. Charges can also be brought if 2 or more people try to levy war against the government or oppose the government's authority by force. Opposing authority? Where did that occur exactly? When the cop backed up to the people advancing and they were being prodded, he picked up his baton and ushered them up the stairs and onto the floor. Apparently, they are overlooking facts yet again. That charge can be brought for a conspiracy that involves 2 or more people conspiring to overthrow, put down, or destroy by force the government. Charges can also be brought if 2 or more people try to levy war against the government or oppose the government's authority by force. The penalty for a sedition charge is up to 20 years in prison. No sedition charges have been brought in the breach as of yet. Authorities have opened over 400 case files related to the incident, Sherwin told reporters. Authorities have hit over 150 people with federal charges, while over 50 others have been charged outside of federal court. Virtually everyone charged federally has been charged with at least 1 felony, including obstruction of government proceedings. Really? Prosecutors started with the most easily provable cases and are making their way to harder ones. Recent charges have involved video footage that has taken law enforcement thousands of hours to pore over. Investigators are now turning to more complex cases, including ones targeting militia groups that were actively involved in planning and breaching the Capitol. They're also beginning to look closer at assaults on law enforcement officers and reporters. Stephen Antuano, assistant director in charge of the FBI's Washington field office, noted that some cases have been built with evidence submitted by family members and friends of the accused. And obviously that is in reference to Straka and what has happened over the last 24 hours with him. I know that these decisions are often painful, but you picked up the phone because it was the right thing to do. We're grateful you made that choice. America is grateful when you made that choice, he said. Investigators still have not announced suspects in 2 major cases: the death of U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who perished a day after the storming from injuries he suffered while responding to the breach, and setting off pipe bombs at the headquarters of the Republican and Democratic National Committees. And by the way, with so much surveillance going on around there, please explain to me why they don't have that on camera. Who's covering up what here? Authorities have devoted specialized teams to the former and have upped the reward for information about a person of interest captured on camera in the latter. So, and in that regard, too, I might ask the question, why is it that we have never learned the identity of the shooter of this Ashley gal? How come that is still being withheld? Why is that? What is taking so long? Lots of questions surrounding that. So, I leave you with this tonight. If it smells like tyranny, feels like tyranny, looks like tyranny, sounds like tyranny, it must be Nope, wait a minute, hold on. Nope. You got that wrong. It's called unity, folks. Correction, unity. Let's get that through our heads, right? All right. Well, that is what I will leave you with here this evening. Appreciate you guys tuning in, as always. And we'll see you back on the next one. All right? Take care. God bless everybody.